Allow me to introduce myself. I used to be in business with your father. I have certain interests that I need to discuss with you.
Now, what happens down there?
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Open Discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is
Cheryl.
And today we're talking about the Netflix show Gentlemen. It's a new show by Guy Ritchie. We have seen the first 2 episodes, so we're going to be talking about at least those episodes. So if you haven't seen them, spoiler alert, go and watch those episodes and then come back and see what we had to say about it. But let's go ahead and jump right into this. So those of you that know me know that I am a Guy Ritchie fan. Like, one of my favorite movies of all time is Snatch, and I really just enjoy Guy Ritchie's style historically. But recently, I haven't been watching as many Guy Ritchie films. For me, he kind of fell off a little bit, and so I just stopped watching his movies. But his classics were always like near and dear to me. I have to see some of his movies from the last like 7 years. But I was surprised to hear that he had a television show on Netflix. Cheryl's the one who actually pointed this out to me, and so that was a little bit surprising to me, but it was also exciting because I had forgotten how much I kind of missed watching something by Guy Ritchie. So the prospect of being able to watch a show by him was very, very enticing. And starting it, I have to say, it is definitely a Guy Ritchie show. You know almost immediately that this is Guy Ritchie. If you've seen Guy Ritchie stuff, you see him all over this. But we'll get into specifics later. Cheryl, what did you think about the show so far?
So I didn't know it was Guy Ritchie. I'm not too familiar with him, but I recognize his name for sure because we definitely have seen, and I believe we also reviewed some movies that he's done.
We did the movie with Henry Cavill. Now I forgot the name of it.
Man from Uncle?
No,
from
Man from Uncle. Uncle. Yes, Man from Uncle.
Something Uncle, yeah.
Yes.
But I thought it was really cool at first. It looked really good. I thought it was really interesting and innovative the way that it was edited. Probably most of the stuff that I found interesting was the editing and the cinematography, the camera moves. Super cool stuff. Very different. Definitely shook it up a bunch. So, and the story is also pretty captivating. So it's not just how it looks and how it moves along. The story is actually pretty interesting, and I like the characters. I don't think any of the cast is super well known. Except
John
for...
Sure. Okay. Excuse me.
Which I hid from Chris because I wanted him to discover that for himself and just be excited by it. So.
And I was immediately excited. So.
Aren't you glad I found this for you?
Yes, you did me a favor, so thank you. I was gonna say I do think Theo James is considered to be a slightly bigger star, but everybody else I think is generally correct. Oh, and we didn't even mention the person that you said you hid from me, so you want to tell people who it was?
No, you do it.
Okay, it is one of the greatest, the one and only Giancarlo Esposito. And once again, he is playing a meth dealer in this show. I was like, wait a second, is this like a loose connection to Breaking Bad? Like, the heck, he's actually a meth like overlord in this. Like, what?
It's like the same character basically, but I still love him. Like, he's still great in it.
Yeah. No, I really, really enjoy his presence in anything, and it's even better. It's always great, but it's great in this. I think the overall cast, even though like there's a bunch of people who aren't too famous, there's some recognizable actors. Like I've seen them in other British like television or movies and things like that. Some of like the supporting actors and stuff like that, like the guy who, spoiler alert, gets killed at the end of the first episode. Like I've seen him in other movies, but
I love that guy.
Yeah, no, I love him too. But yeah, so I think that it's an awesome cast, and you were talking about the editing, and the editing, that is Guy Ritchie's thing. Like for anyone who's seen Snatch or Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, and any of those, even his Sherlock Holmes films are very similar. Like he has a kind of kinetic style to his storytelling, and he uses his editing for humor. Like, he is one of the directors that I can always point to when I want to say his style is, or his editing style, or how I like the editor he works with or whatever, like it is always actively tied to his storytelling. It's not just for moving the story along just so that you can see it and whatever. It's always a part of the actual storytelling and the flair and the style. And that's what I love. Like when they mention a character's name, they'll do a hard cut to that character doing or saying something. And then the repetition where a character might say something that's iconic, and then and rather than have the people who on screen say what the character says, they'll just cut to the character actually saying it themselves, and then cut back to the scene, and they'll do it every time that comes back up. It's amazing. Like, it's so much fun, and it just adds to the moments that are funny. It just makes those moments even more funny. Like, this is one of the best uses of editing for comedy that, like, I've gotten to see in a long time. And so that's what when I say that it evokes Guy Ritchie style, that's what I'm talking about. If you love that classic Guy Ritchie flair of storytelling, it is all over this show so far.
Yeah, and it's super exciting. I think the whole thing about him trying to save his brother, I mean, it kind of started to remind me of Knives Out at the beginning, because there's this whole thing about his dad dying, and then the will, and it ends up going to what's this word? His name, Eddie, instead of
Freddie.
No, instead of Edward.
Yes, it goes to Edward
instead of Fred. It's Freddie and Edward, and Freddie is supposed to inherit the estate because he's the older brother, but his father, for some reason, gives it to the younger brother, Eddie.
Who is smarter, by the way.
And you don't know why, and you're just as confused as him at the beginning because you don't know anything about Freddie. You don't really know too much about either guy, except for that Eddie is in the army, so you don't even know that he's sort of royalty.
Although one other thing, like, so the opening scene does a good job of actually showing you who Eddie is, just to piggyback off of that. Like you said, we know he's a soldier, but we also know just a little bit more than that. We know that he's a cool-headed and nice guy, because the opening scene is like this cool one take where it's just showing him dealing with issues that are coming up at his border patrol, and the way that he deals with them is always from a place of coolness and calmness. And so it shows that he's like an intelligent and cool and capable leader. So I like the fact that opening scene is actually used to kind of show more of his character.
Yeah, and problem solving.
Yes.
So we really don't know anything about the brother, and then he really freaks out when he finds out that he's not going to inherit everything. And not only do you find out that his brother's kind of trash because he gambles and he has a gambling problem, and that's why he really wanted the estate, but you also find out that his dad didn't really have a lot of money either. And there was not really a lot to inherit besides the property, which is worth a lot. So then we get into all these other shenanigans, which is interesting. But I feel like, it can't be that easy, when they're coming up with all these plans. It's very on the nose somewhat, because you know that it would be too easy if their solution just works out. So you're always anticipating something's gonna go wrong. And then, I just remember watching the second episode where Eddie goes into Jethro's apartment, and I'm like, that's too easy. I'm like, I don't even think that I would want to go there myself. I might even send someone there to, knock on the door and see, oh, yeah, I'm just looking for Jethro. I'm his buddy. Or even ask the neighbors if they've seen anyone around and stuff like that. But he just goes right inside. And he doesn't see that someone else is in the apartment, but just outside on the balcony. And I just, I'm so nervous, And I hate that. I hate being nervous, and I know I'm going to be nervous because I know something's going to go wrong with the plan, because something has to go wrong with the plan at all times. They just keep making solutions, and it has to get toppled over, otherwise you're not going to have a show. So there's that kind of element I don't really like, because I feel in that sense I sort of expect
what's going to happen.
Yeah. But it's still super entertaining nonetheless.
Right. And even with that scene that you just talked about, like, all of that is through framing. So, like, it's so funny because I would never say that Guy Ritchie is, like, one of the, like, auteur filmmakers of our time or anything else like that, like someone, like some other directors that we might be able to bring up or mention. But that's another good example. Like, we're just talking about how they use editing to tell a story. Well, that's another good way of just using camera framing to build tension. Because we didn't say it, guys, because Cheryl was like, describing it, that he goes into an apartment and that there's another person in there. But what she didn't describe is the fact that the camera is put like in the middle between like a doorway, and so you have the doorway that goes into the living room, and then the other side of that living room is the bedroom, and it's kind of placed in the middle of that doorway, but it allows you to see half into the bedroom and half into the living room, and the living room also allows you to see all out onto the patio. And so what happens is our main character comes in and he walks into the bedroom, and when he walks into the bedroom, he pulls out his phone, and while he's on the phone, we see somebody come out from the balcony, and now we see the two of them in the same frame. So we know they're both there, but we know that each of them doesn't know that the other person is there. And so then that's when the tension starts building, and then the camera will cut away and it'll just focus on Eddie. Eddie. It'll just focus on him, and now we're like, oh, what's happening with the other guy? And then it'll cut back to that too, that split shot, and then we see some more. So, and it's great, and you're just wondering, you're asking yourself, when is he going to get found out? Is he going to get found out? And so, yeah, I'm glad that you brought that scene up, because it's a really good scene to explain how just even camera framing can help build tension for your story, and it's not even a horror film or anything. It's just a tense moment.
Yeah, and I also like the play that they have on sort of the timeline of the show. So the first episode ends with them, actually, can't quite remember how it ended, but I know it ended
with a shotgun.
Yeah, but I can't remember if that was like the very last thing that happened in the episode.
It was.
It was? Okay. So that's how it ended. Freddie murders Tommy with a shotgun, and Jethro doesn't notice. And so when we start the second episode, and this is what I found interesting, we backtrack a little bit to when Jethro is going with Tommy into the house, and he's wearing these headphones, and all you can hear is the music and his point of view. This is so great. I love this stuff. And then you remember the part where Tommy's like giving him an instruction, and he has to holler at him because he has the headphones on, and then he takes them off, and then you can hear Tommy's instruction, and you're like, all right, and then he puts it back on, and then you hear the music again, and like, he's just, all we get is his perspective, and I love that, because we had already seen what happened, right. And then once those two, the last episode and that episode meet, then we continue the story again. So I really like that there was a backtrack for Jethro's point of view, even though it's not necessarily adding to the story. It's just interesting.
And that's another, and then the sound design right there, right? That was another thing of the sound design, to show you that he really couldn't hear anything, and he was so focused on counting this money until the moment he's done, and he's like, wait, why isn't anyone saying anything or coming and tapping me on the shoulder or anything? So I do want to backtrack just a little bit. We're kind of jumping around because we're kind of gushing about the show, but going back to what Cheryl was saying about how she was describing what had happened up until that point, and now Freddie gets this whole place. The other part that we find out, which is possibly why the father left it, excuse me, not Freddie, but Eddie, why it was left to Edward and not Freddie, is because of the fact that he is approached by this woman named Miss Glass. And you're kind of at first asking, well, who are you? Why are you here? And you find out that his father had been basically supporting a weed operation from like the basement of one of their buildings and had been using that money to kind of, I guess, support himself while giving these people a place to work out of. And so now this is where we talk about how this show brings in new, like, different conflicts and everything for them to like, kind of handle, because Eddie finds out that Freddy is in debt and is going to be killed if he doesn't make $8 million. And so in order to make that money, he says, I'm going to sell the property. That's the best way to deal with that. The problem is that these people use this property to make their money. So they don't want him to sell. And so now we have this kind of conundrum. But then, so he's like, okay, fine, we'll take it off the market and I'll work with these people for now to try to save my brother. But then we found out that there was the person that was interested in buying it when he first put it on the market before he knew all this stuff actually really wants the house and the property, and then sends a kind of liaison to try to bring him to him and so have a conversation about why he should sell to him. That person is Giancarlo Esposito's character. And so now we have all these moving parts and these complications. And the first episode does a really good job of making it seem like they'll be able to handle everything. He goes and he takes the meeting. He offers the guy the wine instead of selling the place. But when he gets the wine, that wine is then used as like the money that he gets for that is something that he can use to save his brother. Miss Glass is somebody that is also willing to help him. She actually knows the gangster that Freddy owes money to. She goes to talk to him. They make an agreement. They'll take it down to $4 million, and all he has to do is make a video where he's apologizing while clucking like a chicken, basically. And it seems like all that's going to work out, and then Freddy takes the money and sells it to a bookie who then doesn't actually place the bets, and the person he placed it on anyway lost. And so then he has to go and get this money that Freddy stole. So Freddy's his own worst enemy. And now, once again, it feels like we had another problem and we solved it. All he has to do is make this apology. But in making the apology, he can't take it, and because Tommy keeps pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. And so Freddy basically gets a gun, snaps, and kills him. And if you've seen a Guy Ritchie movie, you knew that Tommy was not long for this world. You knew that someone was going to die, because someone always dies in a Guy Ritchie film. And that brings about the crux of where we're going next, is going to be how do we survive this situation that idiot has just created for us. So like that's the pitch, and that's kind of like the framework that I see this show going in, where we get these problems, we seem like we solve them, but in solving them we create more problems.
And that's the show in a nutshell. I mean, it really is. It's not too complicated. And I think that's sort of the beauty of it. Is very easy to follow, especially since the pace really moves it along with the editing. And it's just interesting. And I think the characters are also very compelling. I think the acting is great. I really like the guy who plays Edward.
Yeah, what did I say his name was? Theo James. Yeah, Theo James. Yeah, he's really good. I really enjoyed him too. Oh my god. Yes, he is quite attractive as well. Yeah, and I think that all the cast does a good job. Freddy annoys like the crap out of me, but I think the actor is doing a good job portraying him. I'm curious if this is going to go where I think is going to go. They probably won't kill Freddy, but man, it feels like that guy needs to die, because he just creates problem after problem after problem. In the second episode, they introduce another character who I guess is going to be our primary antagonist for the show, where I forget his name. He's like the preacher or something. Do you remember what his name was?
The Tommy's older brother. I can't remember.
Yeah, but either way, he's a gospel gangster, and when they introduce him, they basically cut to clips of him killing people while reciting scripture.
Yeah, I actually really love that. I can't get it out of my mind, because like the way they I guess showed it and captured that, like there's like a push and a pull, and it's so great. And he's like
Okay.
The music worked so well with his preaching. It really made him scary.
Like you believe that he is a threat, and that's what I love. Like you didn't really feel that from Tommy. Like he had moments where he could be a little scary, but you never really felt like he was a serious threat. But when you see this guy, even when he's just regularly talking, you feel it. You feel that he is a threat. He also has some of my favorite scenes with his partner guy, because they do this in Guy Ritchie films too, where they do these like they do a lot of play on words, where he talks about how something he says, "Oh, we got an ambiguous text," and then he says, "Well, what do you mean ambiguous?" And then the guy he proceeds to explain what the word ambiguous means. And he's like, "I know what ambiguous means. I mean, what did the text say?" And that happens a lot, and it never gets old to me. It's so funny because these are like hardened criminals, and they have these such benign conversations, and I think that's where the humor is. The humor is that they're having these such weird and strange normal conversations, but they're talking about really heinous stuff. So the juxtaposition between the two just creates a mood. So it is so far a very, very enjoyable watch. And in all honesty, if we didn't have to cover Avatar for the purposes of this show, I would have actually watched more than what we agreed to watch, because it's been legitimately fun so far. And I'm really curious to see. Like, I think what you're saying is absolutely true. It's not, if you've seen Guy Ritchie films before, or even if you've just seen movies before, you kind of understand how things are going to play out. But I feel like this is a good example of not really caring too much, because the ride itself is so enjoyable.
It's fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. And I think we should probably do a follow-up once we both have finished it. I don't think it's gonna be multiple seasons. I believe it's a limited series. So
okay.
Those are great. I know we both like those, so we definitely could have stopped watching Avatar. That would have completely made sense, except for Avatar came out first, and The Gentleman was an accident that we decided to do last minute. I think we decided to do it last week.
Yeah, so. Basically it was not on the original schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far so good for me. I'm enjoying it. I'm a fan. I feel like I touched on most of my points that I wanted to touch on, but was there anything else that you wanted to say that we didn't get to talk about?
I did kind of want to mention that guy that takes the hitman guy. I forgot what his name is, but when we first meet him, he is like drunk, like super drunk, and he's just drinking. He's at a table. He's sitting outside, and he's at a table that has lots of empty like beer bottles and cups, and he's just got a beer, and he answers the phone. He's like, "Let me check my schedule," and he just takes a sip. Yeah, I'm free.
It's your lucky day.
Yeah. I really like that character. I think he's great, and you think so. Eddie is actually not a bad guy. We kind of know that from, his character, the things that they have showed us. And he really doesn't want to kill Jethro, because Jethro to him is just some innocent kid who ended up in a bad situation. So he tries everything he can to save Jethro and puts him on a boat and sends him off to Australia. And at the very end, I think he mentioned something to Sarah Glass, and she's like,
"Hey, he's gone."
Well, he's not here, is he?
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to him, to Jethro on the boat, and then you see that the person that he's with on the boat is the hitman. So that hints that he's gonna off Jethro. He probably is going to. I can't see him not doing it, because he's very...
Yeah.
I love the way that... I just love that character, because he, like, suits up. He has the hazmat. He's, like, assessing it. And he talks about cleaning up dead bodies. and killing the witnesses as if it's like
art
he's
form.
like he's a plumber, just gotta do the job, you know? Oh, like just like a handyman or something.
That's so true. Like even when he's offering his services, he's like, we handle disposal, we handle this, that, we even handle other witnesses or whatever, however he puts it. And it's just kind of like, oh, well, dang, dude, okay.
Package deal. Can you remodel my bathroom too?
Oh man, yes, no, that character is great. Another thing you reminded me, because we didn't get to talk about this, but Vinnie Jones is in this show as well. And if you were familiar with Guy Ritchie, then you're probably familiar with Vinnie Jones. Vinnie Jones has been in a couple of those things, but he plays the caretaker of the estate, and he has some really good scenes with Eddie where they're talking, and Eddie's like, hey, did you know about this? Or I'm assuming that you know about the things that go on here. And he says, I reckon I do, sir. And like he is just like the coolest guy in this show. Like he knows everything. When Jethro is running and escaping, he sees Eddie running out of breath. He's out with his hounds. He's got his gun, and he just looks at Eddie and says, what are we hunting today, sir? Blue tracksuit. Very good, sir. You're just like, yo, all right.
He's basically Alfred.
Yes. Yes, he is. Oh my gosh, I love that man. I love that man so much. But yes, I don't think, obviously we're gushing about it. Like, I don't think there's enough positive things we could say based on the first 2 episodes. Hopefully the show sticks the landing all the way through. But yeah, great characters, great cinematography, great sound design, great editing, like great directing, great acting. It's like got the total package for just, and I'm not saying it's gonna like win an Oscar or anything or Golden Globe or whatever, but it's a great show, and I think that if you watch it, you're gonna have a fun time. So, is that it from you, or you think we're good?
Yep, that's all for me.
All right, but yeah, so there you heard it, everybody. That's what we thought of Gentlemen on Netflix. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Have you seen Guy Ritchie's other stuff? Do you enjoy Guy Ritchie? Are you not really interested in this? Or are you now interested based on what we said? What have you thought about it? Comment below. Let us know. And we're down there. If you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and I'm a chicken.
We are going to become criminals.
We're not criminals, Freddy.
Welcome to the jungle.
Lapsang Su Chunk.